This is Tim Albright with an AV Network special looking at the future of infrastructure for higher education. With us today, first and foremost, Sarah Kribus from Contemporary Research. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Also with us is Nelson Solares, also from Contemporary Research. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tim.
And also, last but not least, a friend, at least from an AVI Systems standpoint, Mark Ekstrand from AVI Systems. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to chat a little bit about higher education and what the kind of transition of what they've had to go through, quite frankly, from the last year and moving forward. And one of the things that I want to start with, and Mark, we're going to start with you on this and get Sarah and Nelson's. When you've been talking with education, both K-12 as well as higher education for the last year or so, what's one of the biggest hurdles that they've had over the last 12 months?
One of the biggest hurdles that they've had over the past 12 months is just connecting students and teachers together. It's been remote, then it's been in person, communicating all what's going on. That's been a big deal, and different schools are in different places with that. And connecting students and teachers means different things, whether you're a rural school or whether you're a city school. It means different things to each and every one of them. But that would be the biggest, in my opinion, from what I'm hearing from them, is just connecting and communicating students and teachers together.
Sarah, is that the same kind of feedback you're getting from the folks in the field? Is what they've been trying to deal with over the last year?
Absolutely. I think Mark said it great, connecting those students and teachers and providing quality education, right? And a way to do that. And it has definitely been difficult, whether they're keeping students and teachers in schools or trying to bring those students back to schools, or providing a remote learning environment.
Nelson, when you're talking to folks kind of in the field and they're connecting with their customers, what is it that they're trying to accomplish in addition to making sure that the connection between the students and the instructors stay solid?
I would say definitely a product that is able to bring the teacher and the student together within the budget restraints that they have.
Mm. Mark, when it comes to implementing, one of the things that they're able to do, that folks are able to do, and they've been adjusting to and kind of rolling out over the last year, 18 months or so, is video distribution, both locally as well as across the campus. What are the advantages of doing that, both from an existing school infrastructure, and then looking ahead to kind of not future-proofing, I hate that word, but at least giving enough of a runway to make sure that it's cost-effective?
Right. Well, I think that's part of it, right? The cost. Probably one of the biggest advantages is just flexibility, right? To be able to distribute video from or to anywhere within a building or on a campus. And that mattered because we saw, for example, in higher ed, a lot of them turned gymnasiums, things like that, into classrooms. They dispersed, students on their campus because the individual classrooms weren't big enough. So they could take a teacher and they could teach in a classroom but distribute that throughout the campus to those other students for learning purposes, right? So that they just have flexibility. One of the great stories, and this is at a K through 12, is that they had video distribution, and what they would do is they could take an encoder at their elementaries and they could just move it from one class to the next, plug in a device, a camera or a laptop, and then distribute that throughout the rest of the school, whether that be for a little performance, a play, or just a teacher wanting to teach to multiple students because the classroom size just wasn't big enough. So that's just great flexibility to put in an infrastructure where you can add a device and then move that device around and the infrastructure is already there. Probably number two is less managed devices. That's a big thing because when you talk to any school, infrastructure, it's devices and it's people. And when you can put in a distribution system that's less managed devices on their system and then less people it takes to manage those devices, right? So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone by putting in a distribution system throughout your campus or throughout your schools, because cost is a big driver for all the conversations we have. It always comes up.
Well, absolutely. Cost is a huge thing. Both from a K-12 as well as higher education, especially during this pandemic. Now, they'll have to manage not only the increased cost of some of the things that they've had to go through this year, whether that's outfitting every student with a laptop or whatever. They've got some increased costs. Sarah, talk for a second about those classroom sizes. 10 years ago when we talked about classroom sizes, it was the number of students per teacher. Right now, we're talking about the physical distancing of those students. And to Mark's point, how technology is able to allow one teacher to be in multiple places, leveraging the infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, right now the biggest concern is can you space kids out far enough to keep everybody safe? And that's what's great about video distribution is that you can have these overflow spaces, right? For lack of better words, it is an overflow space, an ability to get those kids into areas that allow them to spread out, have 6 feet, 3 feet, whatever it is that district is requiring, and still be able to see the messaging, the performances. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Nelson, when you're talking to folks kind of in the field and you're kind of helping them out, what are some of the other advantages of putting in distribution, you leveraging the existing infrastructure? We've already talked about kind of the overflow space and making sure the kids are separated, but Mark also mentioned the fact that you can also distribute and stream performances in several places. What else are you looking at as far as a benefit there?
Definitely one of the major features of this type of a system is the ease of integration for your emergency alert system integration and the ability it gives you, especially that we have to talk about this, if there's a tornado hitting, if there's an on-campus shooter, many emergency situations, the fact that you have a system that you can talk to, communicate, be simple, be fast, and execute the plan. I mean, that's huge in this day and age.
Nelson, really quickly about that, when administrators and obviously teachers and stuff like that, they start talking about the plan. I'm in the Midwest. Mark, actually, we're all in the center of the country here.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting into tornado season, right? Absolutely, 100%. If you live in the state of Illinois, the first Tuesday of every month, you got a siren going off.
Yeah.
I don't know where you guys are, but that's what happens here. When you start talking about that plan, and you start looking at this infrastructure, explain to somebody who's not familiar with it exactly what we're talking about here. Are we talking about kind of the digital signage part? Are we talking about emergency notification and all clears? How exactly do they lay out that plan?
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about the digital signage. We're talking about something as easy as an emergency system triggering our head end, a fire alarm being pulled. It communicates with our head end and therefore gets the signage where it needs to be, either automatically, manual, or both.
All right, very good. Mark, let's talk about, we talked about a little bit about future proofing, and again, I'm not a big fan of that word, but as we look at upgrades and infrastructure changes to technology, what's the best kind of course of action when you're talking about video distribution? How do they successfully move from legacy technology to a newer, more cutting edge technology seamlessly, right?
Seamlessly.
Keyword.
That's the difficult part, right? You got to have a plan, and it'd be great if everyone just had the funding that they could just go in and put in an IP network throughout their entire buildings, right? And just go ahead and do the distribution that way. That's usually not the case, right? Usually they're working with some legacy coax in places, especially when it comes to going to displays, right? So the important thing is that, and Sarah probably can speak to this a lot better than Nelson, is that contemporary research has hybrid products. They have it all, where with one implementation, if you've got coax that you still got to deal with while you're making this IP infrastructure, right, you can add those components there while also adding their IP delivery system, and it's all controlled and operated, seamlessly on the same system, which is great. I had a customer that they were adding on to one of their schools, right, onto several of their schools, and part of that was not adding coax, just expense, right? There's just no need for that. So they were in need of a solution that made that span. Hey, we still got these older part of the building and the newer part of the building. How do we connect the two? And then we went with the contemporary research products for that. So Sarah might be able to handle that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. To Mark's point, contemporary research has been around for over 25 years. Started out as a company that made products solely for coax. And as customers' needs changed, we saw the fact that not everyone had the budget to flip the switch right like that and go straight to IP. And so we've developed products that allow customers to go from RF to IP without having to change those products. Our QMod modulator encoders allow customers to use RF coax or IP, or use them both at the same time. And the other piece that we add to that is our ability to control displays and TVs over either coax or IP. So those customers that are wanting to make that seamless transition can very easily and very cost effectively, because they're not having to buy a lot of new products to make that transition.
Nelson, let's kind of pull on that thread a little bit farther as far as, leveraging kind of not dueling technologies, because they are separate things and they do different things, but, kind of parallel technologies when it comes to, still keeping that RF in place, but also, looking ahead and starting to add IP infrastructure. To Mark's point, you can't, most folks, most districts and most universities can't just rip out the copper and put in IP. So
Right.
talk about, what that looks like for a technology group. And, it's a several year process. This is not, go in for 1 month and suddenly, magically you've got IP. This is a journey, right?
Right. I think one of the advantages of our products is that you do not have to sacrifice the quality for the older infrastructure, the older legacy cabling. So you can literally uh, give them what they're looking for in video quality on something as old as RG59. You can give them control on RG59, and that's where you kind of blow their heads, because they're used to seeing the fuzzy black and white VCR channel 3 and 4 images, and you're telling them that with a product you can literally bring them into uh, the technology that is the latest and the greatest. So have having those conversations where it's like, no, it can't be that simple. No, it has to be more complicated. I have to yank all the cable out. No, you don't. Let's go ahead and integrate this product and watch how your video quality improves, and you're able to add TV control. Oh, and do not worry, because the moment that you do have the budget and you build the new buildings and you pull the new cable and you realize that the backbone is not coax anymore, you are ready to activate that piece of the puzzle in our products. So definitely a great conversation to have.
I want you to say that part again, because as somebody who used to be a control programmer, not a very good one, but I was, and I still, it's one of my favorite parts of AV. You can do control over copper.
Yes, yes, we can. We're the only ones actually that can do control over copper. And what's interesting about our products, I'd say exciting, is that all the heavy programming that you mentioned has already been taken care of. So when you receive the product, when you plug it in, when you power it up, it's all a matter of configuring it how you want it to work in your environment, how it best needs to function. And it's almost as simple as drop down menus, settings, you're done.
Mark, as we kind of wrap up here, what's one of the biggest questions, I guess is the best way to ask this, that administrators are asking you guys, right? Are asking, their trusted technology advisors as we come out of this pandemic, right? And depending on where you are and your certain infection rates and vaccination rates, what are they asking you guys as we come out of this COVID-19?
Right, that's a great question, and it really blew my mind as I'm having these conversations with, from like I said, different school districts, different perspectives. But really, two things came out, and the first is, what if it happens again? What if we have to send kids home again? What if we have to separate them, or we have to bring them back and send them back? Just all the confusion, right? And we know now that we could have another pandemic on a different type of virus, right? And so just the thought of that's actually, keeping them up at night, right? Like, how do we do this again? How do we prevent this, or how do we do it better, right? Because the number two thing that came out of the conversations I'm having is not only that, but how do we limit the impact on teachers and students? The frustration, the craziness that has happened this year because of all the changes, right? It's created a lot of stress on parents too. I'm a parent, right? I've got kids in school. My wife's a teacher. We've had a lot of stress in this environment, right? So how do we set up, whether that's infrastructure or whatever, how do we make those changes now in preparation for this to happen again, while minimizing that impact on really our community?
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, how do you communicate that, right? How do you, from a manufacturer standpoint, as well as you're working with partners like Mark, how do you communicate that to the users in education?
Yeah, I mean, it's depressing to think, what do we do for next time, right? And really what we're trying to do is help administrators, help our integrators understand, like, now is the time to kind of start thinking about what is next, and let's develop a plan. Let's get some products in there. Let's start working through this so that next time that impact isn't so great.
Now, since Sarah just brought up actually a really good point, and you can answer the other question if you'd like, but I also want to get your perspective. She said, let's make the products now. Talk for a second about some of that feedback you're getting from folks like Mark and his customers, and how that's able to drive your product development and make sure that you guys are ready. As from a manufacturer standpoint, folks like Mark and AVI Systems are ready, and then their clients and their customers are ready for, unfortunately, if it does happen again.
Again, the conversation that you're having, if it does happen again, is putting everyone at ease, right? Because they left an environment that was high. I mean, it was no holds barred, right? You could communicate, hug, fist bump, you name it, have conversations. And now you're returning to an environment where it's like, stay over there, put your mask on. I can't understand you, teacher. So that has raised the awareness and the importance of our product. As Sarah said earlier, in the distribution, as Mark continues to say, in the distribution and spreading people out, now even more. Before it was like, if you guys do not settle down, I'm turning the TVs off, right? Now you can't do that anymore, because that's your main communication, because now you have a mask, you have a shield, you have this distance apart. I mean, it was already hard enough to understand some of us. I mean, sometimes I have a teenager and it's hard to understand him without a mask. So, the importance of the product and the message that you're trying to communicate through that TV display, that projector, that digital signage, the importance of it, because now more than ever, it brings peace, it brings calmness, because you're able to read it, get direction of what you need, and then go on with your school day.
So from a development side of things, what we really look at is what our customers are asking for most, what our integrators are coming to us with, the problems they're trying to solve. And a lot of it is the ability to stream to a wide area network, not just keeping things on a local area network, and also additional controllability features, different commands that we haven't seen before for displays. And so that's something that our engineers look at and work on constantly, and stuff that we're really excited to be bringing as we move forward. So
Awesome. That's a great place to stop. Thank you all so much. Sarah Kribas from Contemporary Research. How do people connect with you and Contemporary Research?
So how do they connect with us? Our website, easiest place to connect, contemporaryresearch.com.
All right, very good. Thanks so much. That's also we can get hold of Nelson. Mark, you're not at Contemporary Research. You're at AVI Systems. So how do people connect with you or AVI Systems?
Yeah, you can go to our website, avisystems.com, and even on that first page, there's a little button that says Request a Quote. And maybe you're just looking for information, but that will start the wheel spinning, and it'll get to us.
All right, very good. Thank you all so much. For us, you can go by avnetwork.com. avnetwork.com. You'll find more videos like this, as well as a host of other great audiovisual news. All that and more at avnetwork.com. avnetwork.com.